Hello everyone, my name is Salar and you're watching Smart Code. This is the third part on common HTML and CSS mistakes made by the beginners or the students. I hope you found part 1 and 2 useful, and here in the third part we will analyze some more mistakes which need to be avoided. We will analyze the mistakes with the help of examples and I will give you tips and the solutions. Right, so let's come straight to the point. The mistake number 8. Mistake number 8 is about to code wrong image container. So what do I mean by to code wrong image container? Let's try to understand it first before we write some code. It's a very common practice that we put image in a container and then we want images of different sizes to fit into the container. The container definitely has a size in terms of width and height, but the images can be of different sizes, exactly the same as the size of the container, larger or smaller. Now let's just suppose if the images are larger or smaller than the size of the container and the container is coded wrongly, then there would be a misalignment on your website. However, on the other hand, if you code your image container correctly, then the images, regardless of their size, either smaller or larger, will resize themselves according to the size of the container and there would be no misalignment in the layout or overflow. Let's now look at an example on that so that you better understand. We need an image container and an image inside the container. And I have two images, so I need this code again. Right? So we are going to put two different images and here we have them, T1 and T2. Now check the images, they have different sizes. The size of the T1 is 400 into 350 pixels and the size of the image T2 is 300 into 400 pixels, right? So there is a slight difference between the size of the images. Okay, so this HTML is perfectly fine and there is nothing wrong with it. We usually make mistake with the CSS and what we usually do, we target the image container and assign it width and the height. Let's say the requirement of our layout is all the images should be in a size of 400 pixels into 400 pixels. So this is a mistake. Just by assigning a size to the image container doesn't mean that it affects the size of the image as well. The images that we have, T1 and T2, will remain in their original sizes. Now let me just put a background color and the border to the image container in order to make it clear to you in the browser. Let's now check the result in the browser. Now you see the problem very clearly. The container has a size 400 into 400 pixels, but the images inside do not change their size to fit themselves in the container. You see, the first image is shorter in length and the second image is shorter in width, right? And here I just want to make one more comment. I would urge you to make use of background color and the border to make things prominent or visible in the browser. And here you see, just because of the background color and the border, you see the problem. So whenever something is wrong and your layout is misaligned, then put background color to the boxes. So now, what is the solution of this problem? We need a layout of 400 into 400 pixels, right? And we have it right here, but it won't give you the desired result. If you want the desired result, you will connect this selector with another one. Now you will target the images inside the container and here you will write again the width and the height properties. I think you might guess what's happening here. Here we are using a different unit, not the pixels. We are actually using %sign here, and that means we are forcing the image to stretch itself and take the 100% height and the width of its parent container, and this one is the parent container, right? So now the images of different sizes will resize themselves according to the size of the container. And now you will see the difference as I refresh the page. And here you see. And so you see the size of the container and the image is exactly the same, 400 into 400 pixels. So that was a mistake number 8 and I showed you how to code a perfect image container. Let's now move on to the mistake number 9. The mistake number 9 is interesting and it is about the use of unnecessary nesting of selectors. Okay, so what does it mean? Unnecessary nesting labels of selectors. You see a piece of HTML on the screen, and let's say I want to style the list item element. So in order to reach the li element, I build a selector like, right? So there is nothing wrong with this selector and it will definitely select the li element. But do you actually need it to go through all the nesting labels to target an element? The answer is no. In most of the cases, you actually don't need such nesting. You will only code such type of nesting when there are conflicting styles in your style sheet, because the specificity of this selector is very high, which is equal to 31. And if you don't know how do we calculate the specificity, then you can watch the specificity tutorial on my channel. I have even put the link in the description of this video. Right, so when specificity is not your concern, you actually don't need to create such nesting. You know, in CSS, you can reach every class just by writing its selector. For example, I can target the top navbar class directly without any nesting, right? And now we can further target the li element like this. So you see, you can write shorter selector if the specificity is not your concern, right? So that was a mistake number 9, and you should try to write shorter selector and avoid unnecessary nesting. So let's now move on to the mistake number 10. The mistake number 10 is about code repetition, or the repetition of CSS properties. I see it quite often to the code submitted to me, and this should be avoided. Code repetition is not considered a good practice, right? In order to avoid repetition, you first need to write your HTML carefully, and then you need to know a variety of CSS selectors to select the HTML. Let me make it clear to you with the help of an example. You see, in the HTML, I have 2 different buttons, and both the buttons have exactly the same appearance or the styles. So the mistake that we do is we actually repeat the properties. You see, the same CSS is applied to both the buttons. So if the properties are same to more than one selectors, then you don't need to target them individually. You can create a group selector just like this. You can group many selectors like this, separated by a comma, and then you can apply the same properties. So now we actually don't need this piece of code. So the group selectors are better choice to avoid code repetition in the CSS. You can even work with multiple CSS classes. For example, our buttons share common styles. So I can assign a common class to both of them. For example, a class name same style. So now by using the same style class, we can apply the common styles to the button. And the same way, using the button1 and button2 classes, we can apply the different styles. And so now our CSS become more sophisticated. What we can do, we can write a single selector, same style. So the same style class is a shared class. So the styles are applied to both the buttons, right? So like I said, if you plan your HTML carefully and you learn a variety of CSS selectors, then you can easily avoid code repetition, right? So we have covered so far 10 different mistakes in 3 tutorials, and I'm ending this part here, and I hope you got some useful tips. I will see you in the part number 4. Stay tuned and thanks for watching.